Hello, I'm Mitchell, aka CreationCatalyst. I'm here with Logan Flanagan. We're going to be doing a standard deck tech. Now, Logan, what do we have here?
We got Mono Blue Devotion. It's a standard deck that focuses on aggro blue creatures, eventually casting a Master of Waves or Thassa, God of the Sea, to destroy your opponent.
Alright, what do you think the strengths of the deck are? What's the reasoning for playing this deck?
It's very aggro. It beats the other aggro decks in the format right now. Even though it gets wiped out by board wipes, it is resilient and it has the option to run counter spells, which most aggro decks do not.
Alright, what would you say its weaknesses? What's its worst matchup? What do you not want to see?
I think anything with Supreme Verdict in it, I really don't enjoy seeing. I can't counter it, so I don't even have a chance to respond, and they can get card advantage out of me real quick.
Alright. Yeah, that sounds like a problem. Alright, so let's take a look at the cards now.
Okay. So getting into the deck, these are the creatures I run. Starting off with my premier 1-drop in Cloudfin Raptor. He's a 0/1 for 1 blue that has flying and evolve. He gets stronger when I play my other creatures. Say I play a Cloudfin Raptor on turn 2 and something like a Tidebinder Mage on turn 3 and a Judge's Familiar on turn 3, he become a 2/3 attacker, and I could swing for 2 on turn 3. With Judge's Familiar, it gives me an extra counter spell, even though it's not fantastic. It also gives me a 1/1 flyer, so for Bident of Thassa, I can draw extra cards very easily and counter extra spells. Moving on to my 2-drops, we have Frostburn Weird and Tidebinder Mage. Frostburn Weird is a 1/4 for hybrid red-blue, too. He also has an ability that lets you pump his power and lower his toughness, so he can get in there for large amounts of damage when you don't have to overcommit to the board.
The games where you win off the back of a single Frostburn Weird.
It's great. Attacking for 4 on turn 3 is insane when you're facing the control deck that wants to verdict away multiple guys when they just can't do it against a Frostburn Weird because they'll die to just him.
Alright, now about the Tidebinder Mage, though, he just looks like a 2/2 for 2.
Well, he's just a bear. But against the right deck, red and green decks, especially the red-green monsters deck that's very popular right now, he's way more than a 2/2. He's a removal spell, which this deck desperately needs being in blue. Also, he adds 2 blue devotion, which will later help with Thassa and Master of Waves. Next, we have our Nightveil Specter. He is a 2/3 flyer for 3 hybrid black-blue mana, and whenever he hits your opponent, you get to exile the top card of their library, and you can cast that card or play that card if you want. This also includes land drops, so you can get card advantage with your Nightveil Specter. And this is your main devotion card. It'll help you cast large Master of Waves and get Thassa online really quickly.
Seems pretty strong.
It's very strong. And then we got the god herself. Thassa, God of the Sea. She's no Poseidon, but she is a 5/5 that can make things unblockable. So she's pretty good. And at 3 mana...
Now, her other ability, though, at the beginning of your upkeep, scry 1. Is that as good as people think it is, or is it...
It could be even better. With this deck, you don't have a whole lot of draw power. You only get Jace and Bident, but with Thassa, it's like draw power, even though it's not exactly like it.
Alright, now we have these 4 cards over here, just kind of spread out on the side.
Well, this is why you play this deck. It's called Master of Waves. This one's called Master of Waves, but it's in Japanese, so it's even cooler. He makes 0/1 or 1/0 blue elemental creatures. Now, in traditional rules of Magic, those creatures would just die. But Master of Waves gives them all +1/+1. That includes other elementals, which, as you can see, there's no other elementals sitting here. But I run Mutavault in my deck, which is an elemental. So it becomes a 3/3 instead of just a 2/2.
So yeah, it's a very flavorful card that's also very good for competitive purposes. Like, all-around solid card.
Yeah. And so because you have such a high devotion to blue because of Nightveil Specters and Tidebinder Mages and Frostburn Weirds, a lot of times you'll be making 5 to 7 elementals. And if your opponent cannot stop Master of Waves before you can attack and deal damage, they've probably lost that game. So it only takes one turn for this 4-drop to really get in there.
All right, so for like for curving out perfectly or whatever, what's your perfect curve out of like these creatures you have?
Well, it depends on my matchup. Against a control deck, I'd like to play things more like a Cloudfin Raptor.
That's off the screen.
A Cloudfin Raptor into a Frostburn Weird. This would get it evolve, and you could attack for 1 on turn 2. Against most decks, I'd like Nightveil Specter, but against a control deck, I like Thassa. They can't Wrath Thassa away. They can Detention Sphere her, but that eats up a 1-for-1, and you're definitely okay with that. And then you still get to attack for 2 on turn 3 as well.
And if they don't deal with her, then you get that pseudo draw power. Which helps you in the longer game.
Also, against any blockers, she just doesn't care because you can make one of your creatures unblockable, even though a lot of them already have evasion.
And of course, you always want to just curve out into Master of Waves for really big.
A lot of times I won't play Master of Waves against a Supreme Verdict deck, especially if I'm on the play, because there's a very likely chance they can just play a land and wrath my field, and I would get really destroyed by that and lose a lot of card advantage. Against a normal deck, my Supreme play would probably be Cloudfin Raptor into Frostburn Weird into a Nightveil Specter, and then Master of Waves, because unless they deal with Master Waves, they've lost that game. Because it triggers evolve off Cloudfin Raptor, like your elementals do, because they're 2/1. So if you don't have any counters on Cloudfin Raptor, Master of Waves and his tokens will evolve your Cloudfin Raptor twice.
All right, let's take a look at the rest of your deck, your non-creature spells.
Okay.
And then lands. All right, non-creature spells. Less of them.
As you can see, I'm only running a total of 8 non-creature spells in my deck. One being Jace, the Planeswalker. Another being Bident of Thassa. We have 2 of those. 1 Cyclonic Rift. And my favorite card from Born of the Gods, Thassa's Rebuff. People do not expect this card. It looks like it might go straight in, but people think it's underpowered at 2 mana. Though I think it is underpowered, in this deck, I think it works very well. Starting off with Bident of Thassa, though, this is your biggest draw power in your deck because you're attacking with creatures every turn that have evasion. So you're probably going to draw into more creatures that have evasion and attack for more and draw more cards. You can also use its activated ability, which is blue into 1 and tap it, and your opponent's creatures must attack this turn if able.
When would you ever actually use that?
Against a time when you think they need to block you. A lot of times it's great in the mirror because you can make your opponent's creatures attack you when they don't have Bident out, and they don't give any card advantage, while you start attacking and fill up your hand, and you get to cast way more spells than they do. The second ability is only sometimes relevant, but the first one is why you play Bident. It also offers 2 devotion to blue, which is very helpful.
Indestructible by creature removal. Devotion.
That is true. Then we have Jace, Architect of Thought. I only run 1 in my main board, but I have more in my sideboard. He protects himself, he draws cards, and he has a game-winning ultimate. That almost never happens with him, at least in this deck, but it's still useful to have. And he also offers Devotion to Blue. He's another permanent, so that's really good for us. We only have 5 spells in this deck that aren't permanents, and they're very powerful. We're going to start off with Cyclonic Rift. It is an instant for blue and a 1 that says, return target non-land permanent you don't control to its owner's hand. That's very good. Like, it's a bounce effect for 1 monster. It's no big deal. But when you overload it, because you have Nykthos, you get to wipe your entire opponent's board and attack for a bunch, maybe having Bident out, getting a bunch of cards for that.
Maybe just winning.
Or maybe just winning. That's usually what happens. And then my favorite card, Thassa's Rebuff. It might not look like much because it's really bad on turn 2, but once you get to play Master of Waves into them having a removal spell and you having Thassa's Rebuff, you feel so satisfied because your opponent thinks he has you, but then you just win on the next turn.
Unless it's a Supreme Verdict.
Unless it's a Supreme Verdict. That's why that card is the worst against this deck. These are all the spells in my deck, and then these are 36 spells, and I run 24 lands.
Alright, so I definitely see a lot of islands here.
Yeah, as you can see, I run 20 islands, with 1 Nykthos, Shrine to Nyx, and 3 Mutavault. These islands help you cast every single one of your spells, because they all cost blue mana. 24 lands seems like a lot in an aggro deck. How we get around playing a lot of lands as well as playing a good amount of spells is that we play Mutavault, which sometimes just acts like a spell or gets around Desecration Demon. There's a lot of cards that Mutavault can get around, like Supreme Verdict. Mutavault's one of your best options against Verdict because they can't Verdict Mutavault away unless they have a Quicken or something like that.
Or they force you to block with it on their turn, which,
yes.
That's happening.
At that point, I probably lost the game. Nykthos, I only run a 1 of because it's not as powerful in this deck as it is in the Monsters deck with its Shamans and stuff. But it is still very powerful, allowing me to cast Cyclonic Rift very easily. And then, obviously, the islands to cast all my spells.
Alright. I know that some lists are running, 23 lands. Why specifically did you run, the extra islands?
Well, I've played this deck quite a lot, and I've decided that I'd rather be consistent, and, I'm able to run the 3 Mutavault and still hit my blue mana to cast Nightveil Specter on turn 3, which is huge against some decks.
Alright. Let's take a look at your sideboard, then.
Okay.
Alright.
Okay. Starting off with my sideboard, the 15-card sideboard, I have Ratchet Bomb. This is good against 2 things. It's mainly good against the green deck. This is because you get to pop their mana creatures for 1. Even though you have some of your 1-drop creatures, they're nowhere near as important as the 1-drops are for that deck. Elvish Mystics, sometimes they're relying on that to get them there. This just stops that.
They also hit Caryatids, which are normally hexproof.
That is true. But the main reason I have Ratchet Bomb in my deck is to beat the Hydra, the X-Hydra, Mistcutter. He has Pro Blue, which obviously none of my other cards can deal with. And he also can't be countered, so I can't even use something like Thassa's Rebuff on it. So Ratchet Bomb only needs to be at 1 counter to destroy Mistcutter Hydra, because its converted mana cost after it hits the field is just 1. Next we go to Pithing Needle. This is a strong card against a variety of decks. I normally name Planeswalkers with it, Elspeth being one, Xenagos, things like that. But he can also name a lot of other things. You can name their lands that they have enchanted with Underworld connections, so they can stop drawing. You can stop them from drawing cards, even though the life loss is good for you. But Pithing Needle is an all-around good option for any sideboard, in my opinion. Then we have Triton Tactics. This is good against the creature decks because you get to tap down their guys and untap your guys, and also save them from removal, like the burn removal that red decks have. Basically, you can make any creature be able to survive a lightning strike or a magma jet or something like that. And then we have, I think, the card I sideboard the most, Gainsay. It's a blue into 1 instant from Theros that says counter target blue spell. That seems very narrow, but that's what sideboard cards should be. They're not main deckable because they aren't good in every single matchup. But because they're good in specific matchups, you're able to sideboard them in games 2 and 3 to try to take down your opponent. They're mostly brought in against blue-white, blue-white X, or mirror match in mono-blue. And then we have Domestication.
Now, I know a lot of decks weren't running Domestication whenever Theros first rotated in, but that seems to be more popular now.
Yeah, some of the decks get way worse when you domesticate them. Besides blue-white, every deck really has strong targets for Domestication. So I don't bring that in against blue-white, but almost every other deck I do. It adds Devotion, it's a 2-for-1, it's really a good card. You can even steal Aetherling with it and pump its power down every turn to keep Aetherling. So it's really good in that matchup, because a lot of times they'll play Aetherling when they're only at 6 mana because they don't think you can do anything because you're mono blue. But sometimes you just domesticate it and destroy them. And then we have Aetherling. He's not run in many sideboards, but he's very strong. He beats the control matchups. If you land Aetherling with a few blue mana up, they can't deal with him, and you've just won that game. He's probably one of the most powerful cards in Standard right now. Going back to Morphling, damage doesn't stack anymore, but he's still really good because he dodges removal and he's unblockable. And then we have Negate. This is just a strong sideboard option against the control decks, which I have a tough time with. They counter any target non-creature spell, which the blue-white decks don't really run many of. So this almost counters every single one of their spells except Supreme Verdict again. Then we have just multiples of cards that we already have in the main deck. We have Cyclonic Rift to deal with the creature matchups, to wipe all their permanents off the field and crush them with one blow. And then we have more Jaces. This card is against the control decks as well as small creature decks because he protects you and protects himself. He lets your guys trade up, and he provides a good amount of card advantage compared to another walker.
Now, you would board in both the Jaces and the Pithing Needles against, say, blue-white control or something, right?
I would, as well as Negates and Gainsay.
Is that ever, really awkward? Maybe you Pithing Needle, you have to needle their Jace or something?
Sometimes that happens, but I feel like their Jace is way more valuable than your Jace. You get to attack with creatures, they don't get to do that. So, while they have a Jace and you have a Jace, and you both want to draw cards and you can't, you're at least doing something proactive and attacking with 4 to 5 creatures a turn.
Alright, now, this is just mono blue. I know there's a lot of decks out there that might be splashing one or other colors. If you were to splash a color, what would it be? How would you do it?
It would definitely be white. I think the blue-white Devotion deck to blue is very strong. I have not tested that out yet, but I've seen it work very well, and I think I might change this deck into that at some point if I think the meta shifts a little bit. The blue-white version gets Detention Sphere, Sphinx's Revelation, Supreme Verdicts in their sideboard, as well as Aphara, the new god. Some don't run her, some do, but it offers extra draw power to your deck.
Alright, so thank you for being here.
Thank you. We'll cut it out.
Yeah, we'll cut it out. Like I said before, I'm Mitchell. I'm here with Logan Flanagan.
Okay.
I'm sure we'll be doing more stuff in the future.
We will.
Like, favorite, subscribe. Leave your thoughts in the comments below. And have a nice day.
No. Go across.
No.
Oh, whoops.
Did
you say everything is awesome?
No. 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 I did not.
Everything is awesome.